Boom. All right, man, what's going on? It's your boy Matt J. I decided to add this new little series to my page, and what I want to do is every Wednesday, I want to review a stock. I want to go through, look at the fundamentals. I read up on the company a little bit, give y'all some interesting facts about the company, talk about the CEO a little bit, just give you kind of like somewhat of like a holistic view on the company, right? So this week, and I got my own little sheets while I write stuff down. But yeah, so today I want to talk about a company I found. I actually found this company by accident. I was working on a personal project. I was building something with Amazon Web Services, and I thought it would be interesting to make it, you know what I'm saying, have something to do with the stock market and financials and things. And I found this company called Veeva Systems, VEEVA Systems, right? Ticker symbol VEEV. They're headquartered in Pleasanton, California, and their CEO's name, his name is Peter Gassner. Peter Gassner, right? So the industry that they're in, the sector industry that they're in, it could be in one or two sections. I've seen it classified in healthcare, and I've also seen it classified in the software sector. But in the healthcare, the sub industry it would be in is healthcare providers and services. And then the technology, and then it'd be if it was in the technology sector, it'd be in the software industry, right? So what they are, they're a CRM for your life sciences. So things like, drug manufacturers, like hospitals, like things like that. So they're a CRM. If you don't know what CRM is a customer relationship management system, right? So they have a market cap of 35 billion, and so their performance this year, they're up at the time I'm recording. Well, at the time that I did this research, year to date they're up 15%, and in the past 5 years they're up 49%. Right? So this is the description I wrote down. So Veeva Systems is a global leader in life sciences industry. They're a CRM and content management. So their two main products would be the Veeva CRM and Veeva Vault, the Veeva Vault platform. And the cool thing about Veeva Systems is their platform is actually built on Salesforce. So their CEO, Peter Gassner, which I'll talk about him a little bit later, he was actually a really important piece in the company's Salesforce, like early on, and getting that company started. So he knew a lot about the system, and he decided to build their product on top of that platform, which I thought was really interesting. So they compete with companies such as, and these are just some of the main ones. But obviously, when you do different things, you're going to compete with companies that specialize in certain things. But the ones I wrote down, they compete with GE Healthcare, which was a spinoff from GE earlier this year. A company called Pro Medicus, ticker symbol PME. Another company called Doximity, ticker symbol DOCS. The Health Equity service. So Health Equity offer things like HSAs, not HSAs. Yeah, HSAs, health savings account. Is that? They offer like health savings accounts, Health Equity. Their ticker symbol is HQY. And another one I wrote down is IQVIA Holdings. Right? And one thing I did find is that Salesforce is going to start offering a life sciences CRM themselves, so they'll be directly competing with Veeva Systems. So I thought that was interesting. But to get into some of the fundamentals, their PE, their price to earnings ratio, and this is basically how much you're paying for $1 of the company's earnings. So if they have a PE ratio of 58, then you'll be paying $58 for $1 of the company's earnings. So their PE is 58, while the industry median is 23.5. So their cash to debt, they have about $4 billion in cash and $56 million in debt, which is amazing. So their cash to debt ratio is about 90.31. So they can cover their debt about 90 times with the cash that they have, or cash and cash equivalents that they have on hand. So their WACC and their return on invested capital. So your WACC is your weighted average cost of capital. Basically, how much is it costing you to borrow money, and your return on invested capital is, how much you're making off of the money that you're borrowing, right? So they have a WACC of 9.71, which means it probably costs them about $10 to borrow a dollar. And their return on invested capital is about 24. So for every dollar they put out, they're getting about $24, $25 back. So that's good. Their return on assets, 10.65%, and their return on equity is about 13.23%. They have some really strong margins. Their net margin, and I typically focus on the net margin. So their net margin is 23.91%, which is great. I think when it comes to the world of margins, anything over about 10 is good. Anything over 20 is amazing. So they're doing great. So their free cash flow. So they have about $996 million in free cash flow, and over the past 5 years, they have been growing their free cash flow at about 23%. And your free cash flow, this is where you get money to do things like pay dividends and reinvest into the company. This is like the money you have left over to do whatever you want to do with. So free cash flow is a very important metric. They don't pay a dividend. So their revenue, the most recent reading on their revenue was about $2.3 billion. And they've been growing their revenue over the past 5 years at a rate of about 22%. Their operating cash flow, which means money they get strictly from doing business, because revenue is everything. Revenue is everything together, like whatever you're investing in, whatever else you might be doing with your money. And your operating cash flow is just money you get from, like, if I sell shoes, it's just money I make from selling shoes, not the money I made on like my stocks and like trading or whatever. So yeah, their operating cash flow is about $429 million, and they've been growing that at about 14% over the past 5 years. So getting into earnings beats. So there's two ways to look at earnings. You can look at earnings like just normal, and then you can look at earnings without non-recurring events. So a non-recurring event would be something like if you had an acquisition or something like that, like those one-off things you do, like you have some legal trouble, like whatever, like those one-off things that don't happen like consistently. So with your non-recurring events, they beat earnings 5 out of the last 8 times, and without them, they beat earnings 8 out of 8 times. So that's pretty good, right? So now getting into the income, right? How the company breaks down their income. So they have 2 lines of business, and those two business segments would be their subscription services and their professional services. So subscription services are their main product, and you license them on a subscription model, because since they're built on top of Salesforce, their whole platform is based in the cloud, something like CrowdStrike, right? So the split between those 2 lines of business, their subscription services account for 80% of their revenue, and their professional services account for about 20% of their revenue. And professional services are things like, helping with onboarding, training people on how to use your softwares, or your whatever product, or like, let's say you had, what's another example of professional services? I don't know. But yeah, professional services and things like that, like just a little extra stuff you do around your products to help your customers out, right? And then where they make their money from. So based on like the different regions in the world where they make their money from. So North America accounts for about 58% of their revenue. Europe is 28%. The Asia Pacific is about 10%, and the EMEA region. So I think it's Africa, like Latin America, Europe. No, not Europe. It's Africa, Let me look it up. What I forgot what it actually stands for. Yeah. You know, this real time, real raw. You know what I'm saying? We not. Oh, I typed in the wrong thing. My bad, gang. Oh, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. True. Okay, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. That's what it stands for. So that accounts for about 2.7% of their revenue, right? And so now I just want to get into some general notes and news that I wrote down about the company, things I found interesting as I was reading up on it. So the industries that they serve, remember I said they're a life sciences CRM. So they serve your pharma and biotech, your consumer health, your animal health, your med techs, as in medical technology. They recently ventured out into consumer packaged goods, food and beverages, and specialty chemicals, because a lot those industries they deal with a lot of regulation, and their product actually helps you organize and stay up to date, and do things, stay up to date on your regulations and like your processes when you want to release a new drug and things like that. So some customers that I wrote down that they have that are pretty notable, pretty big, pretty well known names. You have your Bayer, your Novo and Nordisk, your Johnson and Johnsons, your Philips, your Eli Lilly's. You have your Merck, Moderna, Sanofi. Baxter. I don't know if people know about Baxter, but Baxter was another company I found out about. So I found it interesting that they actually work with them as well. And like Bristol Myers. So some things I wrote down about the CEO. He is 494th on the Bloomberg's list of billionaires. He is currently on the Zoom's board of directors, and he's a co-founder of the company. And one thing that's good for a company is if the CEO is a founder of the company, because they feel more attached to their work. Like, you're gonna feel more connected to something if it's something you built versus you bringing in somebody from the outside. So it's always good when you have a company who is still ran by one of the founders. He worked at IBM and at Salesforce. And at Salesforce, he was a senior VP of technology. He got a computer science degree from Oregon State University. So he's from Portland. His family was immigrants from, I can't remember where exactly from, but his family were immigrants. Oh, Swiss. His family were Swiss immigrants. And his father, so he was introduced, Peter Gassner is the CEO's name. His father was an entrepreneur, so he was introduced to entrepreneurship at a very early age. And his father owned a machine shop out in Oregon. And one thing I learned about Oregon around this time that he was growing up, Oregon had like a really big Swiss population, which I didn't know. I don't know if that's still the case. Portland had a really big Swiss population. I don't know if that's still the case today, but that was just a cool fact that I learned while I was doing my research. So what he said was he was actually tricked into taking his computer science classes at Oregon State by one of his teachers in school. So he was never really a academics type of guy. He didn't really like the structure of like school and academia. But his teacher got him to take some computer science classes at Oregon State, and he liked the classes. But he didn't really like the flow of like school and academia. So he would take a lot of breaks throughout college, and he would go to like different places and just like explore. I think he went to like Hawaii, Malaysia. He would just went like a lot of different places. He would take long breaks from school, but he eventually finished. And one thing I like that he said that he hates losing more than he likes winning. And I just feel like that's a good way to look at businesses. Oh, not businesses, but look at life. I'd rather have somebody who on my team who hates losing more than they just like winning. I feel like it motivates you a little bit more, honestly. And one cool thing, so while he was in Malaysia, around the time he was about 21 years old, he was actually robbed of everything he had. He was robbed of everything he had. And he said in that moment, he realized the only thing that mattered in that moment, and generally just in life is what's in your mind and how you're like looking at a situation, because that's what's going to get you out of things, how you perceive things. So back on the company, and these are just some things from their most recent quarter. Their revenue was up 15% year over year. Their subscription revenue was up 19% year over year. Their operating income was up 32% year over year, and their net income was up 35% year over year. So they're doing amazing in that area. Some things they've just done. They released something called the Service Center as a part of their product line. They added 14 new Veeva Vault CRM customers, so they added 14 new customers in their last quarter. And these are some things I wrote down about the board of directors, right? So the board of directors, it's important to know about them because you want to know who's leading this company, what competencies they have, and you know what experience they bring to lead this company to success, right? So the board of directors, 40% of them have some type of cybersecurity expertise. 70% of them have experience in compliance. Remember I said they're life sciences CRM, so regulatory issues and compliance is a really big thing in the medical industry and like food and beverage and things like that. So that's a big standout. 30% of them have life sciences experience, and 50% of them have some type of experience in tech. Right. And the board of directors, they either hold or have previously held positions at companies such as Oracle, Doximity, which remember that was one of those competitors I talked about. So Oracle, Doximity, Eli Lilly, Splunk, and eBay, which I thought was interesting. And some of the risks, and lastly, I just want to talk about some of the risks that are prevalent to this particular company in this industry. And obviously there are a lot more than these, but you can, these are some of the ones that stood out to me that I feel like are specific to them or the industry in general. They have a small number of key customers that make up a lot of their revenue. So let's say if Eli Lilly was one of those, if they lost their relationship with Eli Lilly, or it was changed in some way, that would like really severely affect their income. All of their revenue is concentrated generally in the life sciences industry. So if something goes wrong there, then they could be hurt because those companies have to spend money with them. For them, that's how they make their money. And when it comes to, data privacy and things, or like just being able to upload and download certain types of information like to and from the cloud. Because remember I said they're a cloud-based platform. It says that at some point it may be possible that customers may not be able to upload and use the data on their particular products. So, and that's where the value comes, being able to use their product to organize and do whatever they need to do with their particular data and things like that. So yeah, man, that's my breakdown of Veeva Systems. I will link everything down below where I did my research from, and I hope this provided some value to some people. So yeah, next week I have a different company, and y'all know. Let me know if y'all like this. Let me know if y'all would like me to add anything to this. While I was actually recording this, I had the thought I need to learn how to do some screen recording and get a face capture or something, so I can actually go through and click around and show y'all these things like while I'm talking about it. I know y'all just don't want to see my face, but yeah.